Welcome back to Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. And Landis, we are hitting the folks with it's the seasons here, right? We have to stop messing around. I feel like we want to provide information on this show, but like you're watching other shows and it's like, hey, we're digging into like a camp report or whatever. And everybody else is like, here's my predictions for whatever. So we've got to get to prediction mode. Yes, we have to get to prediction mode for the season. It's almost here.
Yeah, we don't have much time left. We're playing games in 2 weeks, so we're gonna hurry up and do this.
So we got to tell you what we think. And I don't know what happened, but do you ever have things where you just get like a knot in your stomach and you have a sense of impending doom and dread envelop you? You ever have that?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but I started digging in to double check what I think about this college football season, and I was enveloped by a sense of impending dread. So I don't know. No, this will be fun. So what we're doing on the show, we're going to do a Heisman draft. We're going to take 10 picks, 5 each, for who we think the most likely Heisman Trophy winners are. And this is the idea of like they release a top 10 at the end of the year. Then we can say who had the most guys in the top 10 or who got the most points, right? Total of all the votes, that kind of thing. So we'll do a Heisman draft. Then we'll reveal our Heisman picks so that we actually are on the record, because we got to start getting on the record with stuff. By the time the season starts, we'll have made our playoff picks. We'll have picked a record for all 28 Northern teams. So we're getting on the record, but we got, as you said, we got to get going. So we're doing Heisman that. And then we're also each going to make 3 outrageous predictions for this college football season, Bill, where the point is to not to say, oh, I think Donovan Edwards will rush for 8 touchdowns. Like that wouldn't be good. You got to be crazier than that, right?
Yeah, which I struggle with at times, and I'm looking forward to having you check my outrageousness, because I don't know if I pushed it enough. I tried to find things that maybe will run counter to status quo, but also are in the realm of possibility, right? So it's like I didn't say that I think Dylan Gabriel is going to have 75 passing touchdowns this year.
Right. So you want to climb out on a limb, but give yourself a chance to not fall off.
Yes.
So, but if you're just standing there hugging a tree, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Because, I'm all for the environment, but when it comes to college football picks, we ain't no tree huggers, Landis.
I might need your help with that.
We're on the limb. I will push you out.
Okay.
I actually will be like hanging on to the trunk of the tree with one arm and shoving you out on the limb. And I'll be like, I don't know. I think maybe 60 touchdowns. I'm not sure 50 is enough. But we'll start with our Heisman draft. And I will just say, I have no idea what to think about this Heisman race. So I have no idea what to do in this draft, because the draft, certainly, I think you need to be a little more strategic. I almost need to hedge myself. Well, here's my Heisman picks, but man, I'm probably going to be wrong. So let me make sure I grab some favorites here. Is that how you're thinking about the draft?
Yeah, mostly. I got maybe 1 or 2 picks that I'm considering that might not quite fall under that logic, but I think that is probably the right way to go about it.
I don't like any of the favorites, if that gives anything away. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to draft them.
I'm kind of with you. Like looking through it, it was a little underwhelming. There is actually one guy who I like quite a bit. I don't know if he's considered a favorite, but he's pretty close to the top.
Okay, so now I'm going to have to take now. Here's what I'm sure is going to happen. I'm going to be being like, well, I guess I should take this guy, and then the guy that I really want, you're going to take, and I'm going to cry because I am right on the edge. I watched Father of the Bride last night with my daughter, who is going to study abroad this fall, and it's about how like a young girl goes to study abroad and then falls in love and comes back and gets married and moves out of the house and is gone forever. And I am hanging on, brother. I am hanging on by my fingernails. And then I sat down and I was like, I don't know who's going to win the Heisman. What am I supposed to do? But we got to do a show. No, but this is good. Me on edge, I think, is better for everybody. Isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
When I'm kind of losing it, I'm losing it. When I'm kind of losing it. We got rejected for a West Virginia Penn State credential. I'm like in my head writing the email like, here's why you have to give us a credential. What if I don't get a credential? What am I going to do? Maybe I'll put that in the email to West Virginia of like, guys, I really need this one. Okay. Nobody wants to hear this. This is not helping. Let's have fun. Let's have a good time. Let's do a Heisman draft. You pick first. We're not doing snake. So it's just back and forth. Who's your first pick?
My first pick is Jalen Milroe, the quarterback in Alabama.
Wow. You are deboring yourself. You have just gone full debore. We're looking at the FanDuel odds just because we got to find somebody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's tied for fourth at 14-1. Jalen Milroe. Explain.
I think on DraftKings he's a little worse. He might be like fifth or sixth. There are two guys returning who were in the top 10 last year. Jalen Milroe is one. I won't say who the other is in case he gets picked. If you look at what Michael Penix did in his first season under Kalen DeBoer at Washington, there was a considerable jump in statistics. We've talked a lot about, the transfer, and Jalen Milroe is not a transfer, but he is in a new system, and sometimes that takes more than a year to kind of really, really bear any kind of fruit. But Michael Penix was immediately better and significantly so in his first year with Kalen DeBoer and that staff. I think Jalen Milroe will be too, and he's starting from a pretty good place. You're a guy who's got a huge arm. He's going to have a bunch of rushing production. People are going to be watching Alabama with a very close eye to see if there's any kind of slippage. And I actually think Alabama is going to be good, and they're going to be a playoff team, and they're going to be in the SEC title conversation. And Jalen Milroe is a very exciting player, so I think he's just checking a lot of boxes.
I went through and made my playoff picks before I did my Heisman race, before I did my Heisman picks, because I wanted to make sure what I thought about the season, because I believe the season affects the Heisman, right? That if a team is not as good as expected, that makes it harder to win the Heisman. It's not impossible, but that also sent me spiraling because my playoff field is absolutely out of control. It is. I don't even want to show it. I think we're going to do that show the first week of the season when we are live 5 days a week. And it might be like our third show ever and our last show ever because I am out of control. But that definitely affected, is that a reasonable thing to do, you think, in terms of make sure you have an idea of where you are with the teams as you then think about which individual player might win the most prestigious award in North American sports?
Yeah, I didn't make a field and then go from there, but it was definitely in my mind as I made my picks. And another reason for this is I am coming around more on the idea that maybe it will be Alabama that is the team from the SEC that is kind of most in it. Texas has some stuff going on with injuries at running back.
They do.
You have brainwashed me to think that Georgia's not as good as everybody thinks they are. So I'm getting maybe on the Alabama train as it pertains to most dangerous team in the South. So that was definitely part of the equation here.
I knocked over my drink. Did you guys hear that? I knocked over my drink. Hold on a second.
Did it spill?
It spilled a little bit, but I have a towel from my gym that I haven't gone to in 9 months. But I got a free towel for when I knock over my Diet Coke doing my job.
I like that Mike went to the widescreen so people can watch you drying off your desk.
Help me.
These are the things you miss if you don't watch Gangs of the North on YouTube and only listen to the podcast for them.
Doug, did you guys watch the show today? Doug was losing it. All right, I'm going to take the favorite. I'll take Dylan Gabriel with my pick because I think it's just in something like this. I don't know that I would bet it. He's the favorite at 7-1. I don't know that I would bet it, but I don't want to stare the obvious in the face and then be like, oh, let me take my guy at 55-1 with my first pick. So I think Oregon will be good. I think Oregon will make the playoff. I think Dylan Gabriel will put up big stats. Do I actually think he's going to win the Heisman? We'll see when we make my picks, but I am more in on him. The other two favorites are Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers. I feel better about Dylan Gabriel Heisman candidate than I feel about Beck or Ewers. And I swear, I think that's not only North-South related. So I'll take Gabriel just to make sure that I don't wind up with five guys with 40-1 odds or worse.
No, well, if you feel better about Gabriel compared to Beck and Ewers, I think that's right. I would have taken Gabriel with this pick. Even if all three of those teams are going to be in the national title conversation, and I think there's a decent chance that all three of them are, the nature of Oregon's offense is that Dylan Gabriel will probably have the best numbers of any of those quarterbacks, right? So maybe you talk about Quinn because Texas offense has a lot of potential explosivity as well. But we saw what Oregon's offense did for Bo Nix, and I think he can do a lot of the same things for Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, I think so too. And if there's just like a little bit more team success, you're a playoff team instead of losing in the Pac-12 championship game and falling short of the playoff, I think that would affect again like the view of the high stat good player Oregon quarterback. I think it pushes Gabriel forward. All right, third pick to you.
All right, like how weird can we get with this?
Please, I swear to God, I'm gonna cry if you take the guy I want to take. Do whatever you want to do, but like if you believe it in your heart, Bill, we're just people. Do what makes you happy.
I just don't want to
take my guy. Please don't take my guy.
I just don't want to be.
You're going to take him.
I don't want to be locked into the odds board, right?
You're going to take him. You're setting itself. Go ahead.
Can I take Jalen Daniels?
Okay, I feel better.
Guy? Okay.
No.
The quarterback from Kansas?
No, go ahead.
That's not your guy?
I'll tell you my guy because I'm taking him now. I'm taking Avery Johnson from Kansas State.
The other guy from Kansas
State quarterback. Let's talk Kansas State quarterbacks as the third and fourth picks in our draft. Welcome to the North. Oh my God. Did you have Avery Johnson on your board at all?
Oh yeah, I was staring right at him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for not taking him. Make your Jalen Daniels case. I love it.
It's similar, I think, to the Jalen Milroe case. Just a guy who can do both, and like a demonstrated ability, I think, to do both too. There's the only thing that has really held Jalen Daniels back from being like a star in college football is injuries and just not being out on the field all the time. So this is a bet on him remaining healthy, but he's gonna have, if he is, he's gonna. It's not a high flying like we're gonna throw it all over the place. Like he's not gonna have like 4,000 passing yards, I don't think. But he's going to have a bunch of touchdowns. He's going to run the ball. I think Kansas is going to be like in the thick of that Big 12 title race. And I just think he's a quarterback with a skill set that can like captivate the country. Like I think Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers are very good quarterbacks. I don't know that I find either one of them particularly exciting. They're just kind of good, solid. They're just like good, solid quarterbacks. And I think you have to be exciting and different to really be in this race. So if Jalen Daniels is healthy for the entire season and Kansas is as good as I think it's going to be, then he will be that, I think, for a lot of people as they go through the season and try to figure out who is outstanding and who isn't.
Can I just put in Avery Johnson everywhere you said Jalen Daniels and say the exact same thing? Is it not the same case for a potentially exciting dual threat quarterback for a team that's going to be in the thick of the Big 12 race all season and has a chance to put up awesome highlights and big wins? Is there any difference in the cases that you're making?
I think the only difference is that Avery Johnson is he's not as much of a known quantity as a passer, I don't think, as Jalen Daniels.
I agree.
And I'm not saying like Jalen Daniels isn't Peyton Manning, but we've seen him throw the ball more, I guess. There's just like you can bank, I think, a little more on that passing production and extrapolate it out over the course of a season that I think you can with Avery Johnson right now. But otherwise, yeah, I think all the same things apply.
Odds I'm looking at Avery Johnson 25-1, Jalen Daniels 30-1. So we just did what makes us happy in our hearts. So I like those two picks, though. I feel good about it. I feel good about those. You've brought me back, Landis, from the brink.
Okay.
Because you made a good pick that made me happy, but you also didn't take back my guy. So 3 Daniels, 4 Johnson, 5 back to you.
I feel like now maybe you should like come back down to earth a smidge.
Nope.
No,
we don't have to.
Okay. I will still take Quinn Ewers.
Okay.
He's super famous. And if he's good, which there's reason to think that he will be, he's definitely going to be on a lot of people's minds. I think Quinn Ewers is the kind of guy that I think people will watch hoping that he kind of like proves he's worthy of the Heisman conversation, right? I don't know that he's, coming out of high school, he was like a quote unquote generational talent, perfect prospect, one of the highest rated guys ever. Only a few quarterbacks have had that kind of rating that Quinn Ewers had. He's been under the microscope for a long time too. And there's probably some sentiment that he hasn't quite lived up to that hype, even though he was a quarterback of a team that got to the playoff last year and will be a quarterback of a team that probably gets pretty close to a national championship again this year. If he takes a step forward with his production, he's definitely in this conversation, and fame matters in this. Like, I think a lot of these guys we're talking about are guys who kind of have to earn that notoriety with their play. Quinn Ewers already has it, and it's about like the
Yeah.
play kind of backing it up. So, if we're doing a draft and drafts are about value, and I'm getting Quinn Ewers with the 5th pick in the draft, like I'll take that.
Second favorite at plus 750, 7.5 to 1. He is famous. Is it possible? I do think the fame can work against you in the Heisman conversation if people think, I can't wait to watch this guy. His team is really good. They're on TV a lot. And I watched him and I thought, he was good. But was he the reason that Texas won? Was he doing amazing things? Or was he just part of a talented team? And I absolutely think leader of a talented team is a great path to the Heisman. But if there are a couple other guys who are also leaders of talented teams, I think maybe they'll get your juices flowing a little bit more. Yeah. And I do think the Heisman field, I think, will open up in the same way that the playoff field is opening up. Because I do think your team being good really matters, unless you're Lamar Jackson or Caleb Williams. And I've thought previously, like in a 4-team playoff world, you almost have to be playing on conference championship weekend. I don't think that's going to be as much the case anymore, but I think your team is going to have to be in the playoff mix. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's going to affect people's thinking and think, oh man, like that guy, he's a really good player for a 10-2 team, and they didn't make their conference championship game, but they made the playoff. They're the 9 seed and he's really good. Whereas if you were the player on that same team that was 10-2 and it was like, oh, his team's in the Peach Bowl, that's good, but it doesn't really matter. I think it affects your view of the Heisman. So I think we're opening the field. And then if we open the field to more potentially exciting quarterbacks, and Quinn Ewers is solid for a really good team, I almost wonder if the fame can work against you.
Yeah, I think if he's merely solid, that's right.
Yeah.
I am envisioning him being something better than that. He's not like the kind of athlete of some of the other guys we've taken, or not nearly the kind of athlete of some of the other guys we've taken, but he does move around a little bit. I was actually surprised. I just looked this up as you were talking. He had 224 scramble yards last year. That's that's significantly higher than I would have assumed about Quinn. He makes some crazy throws. He'll do some off-platform stuff. Like he's got ways of generating highlight plays beyond just sort of like being in the pocket, making a right read and throwing an accurate ball. Right. I don't know that gets you the Heisman Trophy. But if you're willing to be a little bit of a playmaker, which I think Quinn is, then that I think gets you down the road a decent amount. And if he's doing that while he's as famous as he is, and their production is better than it was last year, especially like Texas doesn't hurt for skill players, but they don't have like Xavier Worthy anymore. Like there are some like household names that Texas lost at the skill positions that if Quinn manages to get better without those guys, I think that will impress people too.
Okay. Are we going to take 10 quarterbacks, by the way?
No.
Okay. I'll take Cam Rising. Utah quarterback. 30 to 1. I think a very good case of this is the clear on-field, off-field production, emotional, mental, physical, everything leader of an excellent team. A team that you and I have thus far predicted will win the Big 12. If they win the Big 12, I think they'll be the 3 seed in the playoff. And 7th-year Cam Rising, who has been around the block. There's sort of a story to tell with the fact that he missed all of last year with an injury and now he's back. We've talked about, we think the ball in the Big 12 is going to be good. I think Utah will be on people's radars enough for him to have the attention that he would need. And then I just think he might go out and throw for 265 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns every game. And Utah's just a machine and is just playing good ball. And maybe he's not in the top 20 in the nation in passing yards per game, but he doesn't need to be, right? There's like a Max Duggan finished second in the Heisman for TCU. Like your team is good and you're the quarterback. I think Utah maybe is the team's going to be good. Man, they have a path to be like a top 4 seed because they're in the Big 12. I think it's a really good case for him. So he's 30 to 1, but I like it. And we have taken 3 Big 12 quarterbacks in the first 6 picks.
And you've gone all north, right? So far.
Whoops. Who knows? Have I? I'm not sure that I noticed. I have. Because I'll tell you, there's a guy out there I'm not taking. So if you want to take him, you can take him 10th if you want, but I'm not taking him. So if that affects your drafting, I'm not trying to game the system here. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not taking him.
Okay. No, I'm not taking him.
Where's my hat? I'm not taking him. I'm not taking him.
I'm not taking him.
My hat is not within reach, but I'm not taking him. And you're not taking him? Now we're going to be on TV.
Why? Because I don't think Carson Beck's. Yeah,
he's a favorite.
Easy. I don't think he's going to win. Yeah.
I love you. I love doing a show with you. Okay. Seventh pick to you. We're not taking him. Not taking him.
I will take Quinshon Judkins, running back from Ohio State. Blake Corum was top 10 in the Heisman last year, averaging only 83 rushing yards per game, which is kind of insane. But he had, 27 touchdowns, because basically every drive that Michigan had last year ended with a Blake Corum rushing touchdown. And I can see a similar world for Quinshon Judkins in which he scores at that rate, but also is more productive as a runner than Blake Corum was last year. Blake Corum was dealing with some stuff, I think, from the injury the year prior. Just wasn't quite his explosive self last year. Still very good. Quinshon Judkins has that explosive element. I think we'll maintain it all year because he's in a shared backfield with Travion Henderson. Will help keep both those guys fresh. Excuse me. Quinshon Judkins is very famous, high profile transfer, one of the most productive running backs in the country over the last 2 years. People will naturally have eyeballs on him anyway, given Ohio State's status in the sport this year. They're going to be a playoff team. They're going to be in contention for the national championship. And I think Quinshon's going to be in a lot of televisions during a lot of highlights as Ohio State goes on that run. So I think of all the running backs you could consider here, and Ollie Gordon is one from Oklahoma State, who's another returning top 10 guy from last year. I like Quinshon's case better than all of them.
I think it is correct that he is officially Ohio State's best Heisman candidate. The odds don't say that at all. Will Howard is tied for fourth at 14-1. Quinshon Judkins is 100-1.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in this kind of thing and you're watching this show and you have $1 and a betting app, go put $1 on Quinshon Judkins at 100-1. We did a Heisman draft, I don't know, in March. I can't remember when we did it. But we've debated who is Ohio State's best Heisman candidate many times. The idea that Caleb Downs might play a little offense made us both super excited about Caleb Downs' Heisman candidacy. Has he taken a snap at running back in preseason? Is that over? Was that like a spring football little pixie dust? Okay.
I mean, he might score an offensive touchdown this year, maybe. But their running backs coach at Ohio State, Carlos Lachlan, was asked about it and looked like he wanted to murder somebody for the mere suggestion that anyone other than a running back will take a carry at Ohio State.
I mean, his head coach suggested it before Carlos Lachlan got there. So I do think then in the end, Quinshon Judkins is the best candidate because I think, Ohio State will be a defense first, run the ball effectively, and then also throw it kind of team, right? So I just don't know that it sets up for a quarterback to win, even though Will Howard seems like he's had a very good camp.
Yeah, I don't think it's Will Howard. I will say I'm more open to the idea of it being Will Howard than I definitely was in the spring, but I still don't think it's him because Will's made some progress with his game, it sounds like, but I still think it's Quinshon Judkins given the nature of what I expect this offense to be.
Okay. I am going to go south. Okay. And I'm going to go for the exciting highlight for a team that has a chance, I think, to be better than people expect. And he's not a huge long shot or anything, but I'll take Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee, who is 14-1. So that's tied for fourth with Will Howard and Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart of Ole Miss. So this is not a stretch at all. He's super tall. He's really fun to watch play quarterback. He had a good bowl game last year, and Tennessee's going to have some huge games, including one against Georgia. And I think, we saw the Hendon Hooker case a couple years ago when Tennessee was good. And if he had stayed healthy, he would have been, I think, a Heisman finalist, and he wasn't. Just like I think Blake Corum 2 years ago, if he had stayed healthy and played in the Ohio State game, I think Blake Corum would have won the Heisman. So like we're looking for paths here. Quinshon Judkins to Blake Corum, I think, is a good comparison. I think Nico Iamaleava to Hendon Hooker, not comparing their games, the style of play or anything, but like that type of team, if Tennessee can surprise people again, play a bunch of big time opponents, and the dude's a 5-star super talented guy, second-year quarterback, first-year starter, I'll take Nico.
Yeah, I think we talked about the second-year quarterbacks on Tuesday's show. He's probably the one to pick. I know you picked Avery Johnson ahead of him, but he's going to throw the ball a ton. Nico is at Tennessee. It's just like that's what their offense is. Like there's a chance for that to really take off. So that's a good pick. I thought you might go Cam Ward as you were leading up to that.
Oh, okay. Which is another team.
Yeah.
When we talked to Brett Ciancia, he's like super high. He has Miami in his preseason top 10 when I think they were 19th in the AP poll. I think like a quarterback who elevates a program is like a real thing, right? So that's a real opportunity there. So I think Cam Ward's interesting too, but I kind of like watching Nico.
I like watching Nico too. I think Nico and Nico, I mean, he's young, so maybe he'll have some volatility, but Cam Ward has a lot of volatility in his game. So you don't.
Yeah.
That feels like a not a necessarily safe bet if you're thinking about that.
Yeah.
So it's my last pick.
Picks. Last 2 picks for us. Yep.
Yeah. My last pick. All right. Can I stand on business? Can I do that?
As long as it's not standing on my business.
All right. I'm picking Abdul Carter.
Let's go. Let's do this. Let's be of the North and let's think outside the box. So this is it. You stood on your business and then I delivered the business. I was your errand boy about your business and I took it straight to Abdul Carter. And that was just when you said he was going to lead the nation in sacks. I want to go back in time and have you make this Heisman pick before I went to Penn State. And then I could have said to Abdul Carter, my guy Landis has you in the Heisman race, and see what he would have said about that.
He would have loved it. He would have said, what did he say about my prediction? He said like, that's a smart pick or something like that.
That's good intuition.
Good intuition. Yeah. I think this is good intuition too. I think my intuition is good intuition. I think this is kind of open in a way that maybe a defensive guy gets a part of the conversation, not to win. Like I'm aware of the dynamics here. Like I don't think a defensive guy is going to win, but there have been plenty of examples of guys breaking through. There were 3 in the top 10 in 2021. Chase Young was number 4 in 2019. Quinnen Williams was in the top 10 in 18. Roquan Smith in 2017. So there is a recent history of very good defensive stars being a part of this conversation. And if I think that Abdul Carter is going to lead the nation in sacks, which I do, for a Penn State defense that I think is going to be very good on a playoff team, then I think he finds his way into that conversation. And I'm excited about, and I guess this would have been true under Manny Diaz as well, but I think Tom Allen is going to like use Abdul Carter as like the guy in his defense, just like move him around and let him go tear stuff up in a way that's going to make him one of the more exciting defensive players in the country to watch all year. So do I trust Heisman voters to actually pay attention to that in a way that will be meaningful? Maybe not, but I will be. So I'm perfectly comfortable drafting him with my last pick here.
So I think it's really good. Best player on a playoff team is a great case. I can already hear Mad Dog Russo and Stephen A. Smith talking about college football for 45 seconds and being like, he plays 2 positions. He's a linebacker and an edge rusher. And by the way, the comparison for him is the best defensive player in the NFL, because Micah Parsons at Penn State was a linebacker that they probably should have played on the edge, and now he's an edge guy in the NFL. And it feels like Micah Parsons walks, so Abdul Carter can run. It's an easy comparison for people. And Micah Parsons is everywhere because he's supremely talented, and he's also just like very forward facing as a personality. That's an easy thing for non-college football experts to grasp onto. And by that, I mean ESPN talking head shows, that you can make a graphic at the bottom that says, is Abdul Carter the next Micah Parsons? And all of a sudden he's in the Heisman race.
You would hope so, but also ESPN might not talk about him because Abdul Carter's going to play on Fox, and apparently that's what ESPN's doing now.
Yeah, maybe Paul Feinbaum can rip Abdul Carter and with everybody else in the non-ESPN world that he's ripping, and like that's also a good conversation. He's no Micah Parsons. Okay, fine, as long as you're talking about him.
Micah Parsons played on ESPN. He'll never
That's
be Micah
right.
Parsons.
That's it anymore. It's like, what team do you play for? What network do you play for? Where have we gone? Where have we gone? Okay, here's my last pick. This is the guy when I was explaining I was going to take Nico, and then you thought, oh, I thought you were talking about another guy. I thought you thought I was talking about this guy, who's basically, he and Nico are like the same deal to me. And it's Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
They are both former 5-stars. They're in the second-year quarterback group that we've talked about. I mean, we talked about the other day. We talked about Jackson Arnold, Nico Iamaleava, and Avery Johnson. So I took all three of them. And I think Oklahoma will be the surprise team of the college football season. So that is a huge part of this for me. I wanted to hold off because I might be completely wrong on that, but he's 30-1. And he's the same as Cam Rising and Jalen Daniels and like a bunch of guys like that. I really like this one. So I think Oklahoma will have its defensive identity with Brent Venables. They play a lot of high-profile games in the SEC. Jackson Arnold will have a platform, and I think he has a chance to pop. So I got all three guys that I really wanted. I know that they are long shots, but I can see if Oklahoma does what I am predicting Oklahoma to do, I think Jackson Arnold is a Heisman finalist. So I just might be 5 wins off on Oklahoma's win total. So I waited to take him.
I don't know they'd be 5 wins off. No, I think Oklahoma is like a good. It's weird to talk about them like it's like a sleeper pick because they're Oklahoma, but it does kind of feel like they would be that if they come out of the SEC as a playoff team. But they definitely have a shot to do it. I think Jackson Arnold's very good. Jackson Arnold is always in the back of my mind because I think back to like covering Ohio State when they were going through the 2023 recruiting cycle, trying to figure out their quarterback stuff. And it always felt like if Ryan Day had a one wish from a genie to get whatever quarterback he wanted in that class, like it was Jackson Arnold. It just seemed like is Ryan Day the ultimate arbiter of who's good and who's not at quarterback? Of course, no, he's not, but he's got a pretty good eye for it, I think. And it seemed like he was quite high on Jackson Arnold's potential. And I know a lot of people were, but that's always kind of in my mind when I think about him. There's an opportunity absolutely for him to be the guy that emerges from that second year group of quarterbacks to become one of the better guys in the country. So it's good. It's a good pick. Good value too.
So the guys that we didn't pick Carson Beck, who was the second favorite behind Dylan Gabriel. We didn't pick Jackson Dart because we are not a Jackson Dart Heisman show. You can go find a Jackson Dart Heisman show somewhere else. It is nothing personal against Jackson Dart. But the day that we start talking about the Ole Miss quarterback who's not named Eli Manning as a Heisman candidate, like just shut this show down. And we also didn't pick Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Are you kidding me?
I feel like those are the two. You are either a Jackson Dart Heisman show or an Avery Johnson Heisman show. You can't do anything other than those two. We are an Avery Johnson show.
To cast my lot with the Avery Johnson Heisman shows. So that's our draft. We'll see what we'll track it. Well, by track it, I mean I wrote it down on a piece of notebook paper and I have a bulletin board in my room. So I will hang this piece of paper on the bulletin board. It is an IKEA bulletin board. So instead of cork, it's cloth. Because I guess in Scandinavia, they don't want to use cork boards. They want to use cloth boards. And the pins constantly fall out of the cloth. I don't know. Yeah. You go in IKEA and they brainwash you. And by the end of it, you're like, this all makes total sense. Why is everything not Swedish? So I bought a bulletin board there and it was insane. I should have gone to Lowe's. What am I doing? But I'll see if it falls off or not.
They're using all the cork to make the cork board for their furniture, so they can't use it for
the furniture is made of cork, but the bulletin boards are not. That's if Stetson Bennett worked at IKEA. Make your Heisman picks.
That accent was offensive. I'm just not sure to who.
To everyone. I get it. This show getting shut down in the first week is on the table for so many different reasons. IKEA's coming after me. What are you going to do? Let's go to your actual Heisman picks, because again, the draft and the Heisman picks are not the exact same thing. We're both Heisman voters, right? Mm-hmm. So like It doesn't mean anything, but we're going to actually do this at the end of the season in a way that is meaningful and that matters. And so we're putting it on the table now of what we actually think. Who are your three guys?
Yeah, so my top three are, number one is the guy that I picked first, Jalen Milroe, quarterback from Alabama. Number two is Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback from Oregon, for like all the reasons that you laid out when you picked him second in the draft. And then I'm going Abdul Carter third. I've put defensive players in my ballot in the past. I'm very comfortable doing that. I embrace actually the opportunity to do so because I'm kind of sick of this being a quarterback award. If I'm being honest, I'm not going to be disingenuous with my vote, but I am definitely on the lookout always for guys who aren't quarterbacks to kind of catch my eye in a way that I think is deserving. And I expect Abdul Carter to do that this year. So I have him third.
Love it. You just think that so it's the marriage of Jalen Milroe's talent, Kalen DeBoer's offense, Alabama's fame, and the opportunity presented by an interesting schedule in the SEC that convalesces around a Jalen Milroe Heisman win.
Yeah, and the fame, the Alabama fame getting some jet fuel poured on it with the absence of Nick Saban and the curiosity that comes with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hold on to your butts. Here, these are my official Heisman picks, and I actually am going to take Jackson Arnold to win the Heisman.
All right.
I think Oklahoma will be the number one surprise of the college football season. And I think there are multiple other teams featuring favorites that I'm not saying they won't be good, but I think in the regular season, they won't be as good as people expect. And that will dim the Heisman chances of those favorites slightly. Avery Johnson and Cam Rising are my second and third finishers, and I think they will meet in the Big 12 title game, and let's go. And so I'm not saying this means I think Kansas State's going to beat Utah in the Big 12 title game, but I think Avery Johnson has a chance to be just like a highlight machine and propel a Kansas State team to like an excellent season and just be the kind of guy that you get fired up to vote for. And then I think Cam Rising is sort of the opposite end of that conversation of just a steady veteran leader of an excellent team. So 3 quarterbacks from Oklahoma, Kansas State, and Utah. And by the end of this conversation, I'm sort of persuading myself, Oklahoma's kind of north, right? Oklahoma's not Louisiana or Florida. So like, could we creep down there? I mean, but like, what a thing for that area, right? Forget the coasts and forget the deep South. We're just going right down through the heart of the Midwest. Utah, Kansas State, and Oklahoma living it up in New York City for the Heisman.
That's like the ice cream cone, right? Texas is the ice cream, and then they get the cone in the middle with Kansas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, let's do that. That's the ice cream cone Heisman ballot. Plus, I love ice cream.
Did you, as we were going through this, or you were going through it, because 2 teams we have championed quite a bit on this show are Iowa State and West Virginia. Did you give any thought to anyone from either of those teams as you were going through it?
So it's one of those things of, I am also trying to balance this of, I think a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Do I want to turn the thing I think into an actual prediction?
Yeah.
Maybe not. So to sit here and say, do I think Abu Sama could run for 1,900 yards and 26 touchdowns for Iowa State and be a Heisman finalist? I might think it, but I'm not sure I'm going to predict it. Yeah. And could Garrett Green set the world on fire and be the best dual threat quarterback in the country and throw for 2,500 yards and run for 1,200 and lead West Virginia to the Big 12 title game? Yeah, I think he could, but I'm not sure I want to predict it. So I think even though my 3 predictions are pretty crazy, I think an Iowa State or West Virginia guy in the top 3 would have been even crazier. It was slightly a bridge too far for me to actually put it on a screen, on a show where somebody could take a little shot of it and be like, check out this guy.
Yeah. My version of that is Abdul Carter, right? But I'm very comfortable doing that. I would have been far less comfortable being out there quite on that kind of a limb, I think, with anyone from West Virginia or Iowa State. So I think that makes sense. Plus West Virginia too. They got like the 3-headed monster thing in the backfield going on. I just probably a little too much sharing the rock there for anything to pop.
And if Rocco Beck like has a huge year, but he has 2,000-yard receivers as part of it, now you're like,
yeah,
it's the Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, Rocco Beck. Oh my gosh, who do I vote for the Heisman thing? Which is, if that's Iowa State's biggest problem this year, I really feel like Jalen Noel is taking away from Rocco Beck's Heisman case. What a season it will be in Ames, my friend, right? Let's get to that point.
Yeah. Well, they do have the second best collection of skill talent in the North. So,
I heard that. And I actually heard someone tell Jalen Noel that. Okay. Now we're getting to the outrageous part of the show.
Yeah, right.
That was just Heisman stuff. Now we're getting to what we are going to call outrageous predictions for the season. We each have 3 of them, and we'll do that next on Kings of the North. Back on Kings of the North, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at KOTNCFB. Get subscribed to the YouTube channel so you don't miss out when we go live. Noon to 1:30 or so, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, beginning on August 26th. And then a post-game show that, Bill, we're planning to hit. We're calling it KOTN Late Night from 11 p.m. to midnight most Saturdays. Mm-hmm. So like we kind of arrived at that, and we just want to make sure that people can find us again the week before the season starts. Not the week 0 stuff, because we don't have any week 0 teams playing. But when we really are previewing the season, and then that's what we're going to be doing like through the national championship game. So how good do we feel about that?
Feel really good about it. Plus some other stuff sprinkled in too, right? Maybe we got to firm those plans up a little bit, but we definitely know like T-Shoe is going to be part of it, right? With the gambling for sure stuff. So some other stuff beyond that, but yeah, we're getting ready for it.
Yeah, Tyler Shoemaker joining us for a college football betting show that will not be live, but will be in your feeds every Friday morning. So if you want to wake up with that on a Friday morning, maybe decide on your final picks going into the weekend, T-Shoe is going to be giving you great information there. So we want to have a little something for everybody, unless you root for teams for the South, and then we don't have anything for you except mockery and some real talk sometimes when nobody else will give it to you. As we record this, JJ McCarthy announces out for the season. Disappointing for him, and it's hard. It's just life a little bit. Last year literally went as well for JJ McCarthy as it possibly could have gone. I actually think his college football career went as well as it could have gone. For JJ McCarthy, from where he was, which was maybe thinking he'd get an Ohio State offer, didn't get it. Ohio State picks somebody else. He decides to go to Michigan. He sort of lays down the gauntlet of like, Ohio State will regret this. He does make Ohio State regret it. They are 3-0 in his tenure at Michigan against Ohio State. They win the Big Ten every year. They make the playoff every year. And they end it with a 15-0 national championship that he is the quarterback of. Is he the star? Not necessarily, but he's the quarterback, and he makes big plays when they need it. And it is a pixie dust kind of college career, Bill. And then you get to the NFL, and it ends with him being a top 15 pick in the NFL draft, which is stupendous. And now this, and it's just kind of how life works sometimes. And we're not even talking about like Connor Stallions or anything like that. It's just, this is no fun for anybody to be injured and miss your whole rookie season. But I hope he gets healthy and is able to come back. And I think he has a chance to be a pretty decent NFL quarterback.
I think he does. He's a guy like definitely under a microscope, like people kind of wondering whether or not he was worthy of being picked where he was. And I think people at times like having some fun on social media with some bad plays from camp. It was pretty good, I think, in the preseason game he played the other day, though, right? Or not all that bad. It's also it always hits a little harder for me too when a guy kind of goes through his college career without missing any time, and then like all of a sudden he gets to the NFL, and it's like, man, like your season's over before it started. So it sucks. I hope, meniscus hopefully is something he can rebound from, even if he's going to miss this season. So hopefully that happens. But yeah, tough blow for him, tough blow for the Vikings.
And we're recording this a little before it's going to air. Maybe it happened by the time we show this to you guys. Are you in on Atlanta trading Kirk Cousins back to Minnesota and just letting Michael Penix do his thing for the Falcons, which is another Northern quarterback conversation? I'm
definitely in on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Kirk Cousins of the North, Michigan State's own. So like we just, again, Northern quarterbacks, man, I really was invested and will remain invested in the 3 Northern quarterbacks from this past draft versus the 3 Southern quarterbacks. So Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels from not the North, and JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, and Bo Nix from the North. And it felt like, I think Penix and Bo Nix have looked pretty good in the preseason. And I think, I'm not sure that Caleb Williams has looked pretty spectacular, right? I'm not sure about the other two. So I'm like I would have like laid a wager on, I'll take the 3 Northern guys. Like I think this year and beyond. So it's disappointing, like just that, we're not going to get a handle on what JJ McCarthy is or isn't, because I think to your point, certainly there are people that have questions, but the guy like revolutionized Michigan football. Like the guy balled out for 3 years. So what would that look like? He would have been a fascinating case. And especially, Minnesota loses its starter. They trade up to get him. Like it was all there for him. So disappointing for JJ McCarthy. Let's make outrageous predictions. You are worried that you will not be outrageous enough. So I will go first with my first one.
Okay.
And try to lay it down a little bit for you. Just see okay, what's Doug talking about here? Is this? So here's my first one. And this is my dual thing, that it's 2 things in one that combine to make an outrageous prediction. I'm not sure that either of the 2 things on their own would qualify as outrageous, but combined it might be. I think Alabama will beat Georgia this year and miss the playoff.
Oh.
So that's a September banger, Bama and Georgia. I think it's week 4. Is that right? Week 4? I think that might be right. They're in the South. I don't care. My prediction on this is like a Kalen DeBoer offense that maybe Kirby Smart doesn't quite have a full handle on yet. And it's at Bama, being too much for Georgia in that moment. But then Bama late in the second half of the year has, I think, like 3 real road trips that are not games they can't win. But that to me is like, welcome to the SEC, Kalen DeBoer. And all of a sudden, Bama looked awesome early. They were rolling. Everybody loved them. They thought Kalen DeBoer was the greatest hire ever. And then they came back to earth a little bit. So I have Bama losing at Tennessee, at LSU, and at Oklahoma in the second half of the season after a 6-0 start. So that is my formula for that. And that includes that week 4 win. It's their 4th game. I think it might be week 5. Their 4th game of the season is a win against Georgia. So what do you think about, does that feel outrageous to you to try to combine those 2 things?
Yeah, because if you're telling me Alabama's beating Georgia, that feels like Alabama like gearing up for something, right? Like almost a springboard into the rest of the season. So those 2 ideas definitely don't equate for me. And as I said during the Heisman segment, I kind of like Alabama this year to be maybe the most threatening SEC team in the playoff. So, and like they're getting a lot of credit, I think, or like they're Alabama's 5, I think, in both polls. So like people are not expecting much of a drop off. At least voters aren't. People in the coaches poll and AP voters aren't expecting much of a drop off from Alabama, it seems, going into this season. So if that's like a blip and they beat Georgia and everyone's like, okay, here we go, and then they end up not making the playoff because they can't get a win, and that's a tough road slate you just laid out. So like I think saying that they would lose all 3 of those games is not all that crazy, but to combine the 2, I think would be a little out there for what people seem to be expecting of that team this year.
That is a week 5 game because Georgia and Alabama both have an off week before they play each other. And if you want to throw in Bama loses at Wisconsin in the off week, refines itself, and then beats Georgia, we can do that. We can do that also. But that's not. I mean, I got a little more specific, and it's the prediction is the prediction. I just told you how it might include Luke Fickell and the Badgers and Phil Longo and Tyler Van Dyke and Will Pauling like getting it done in Camp Randall. So I'm leaving that window open as well. Can you imagine? Lose to Wisconsin, beat Georgia? I'll do something crazy. If this season goes how I think it might go, I'm just going to be like dancing on a lot of Mondays anyway. We got this desk that can go up and down. Oh, it's not plugged in.
Oh yeah, I unplugged it when we were recording the other day.
Can someone plug in my desk? I got to get a desk plugger in her. I will, on Mondays that deserve it, I will lift the desk and dance if this college football season unfolds how I think it might. Because the main thing is, it's going to be awesome. Even if it's a little more South heavy than I want it to be, it's going to be awesome and fun. And actually, I have another prediction about that at the end. So that's my first one. You thought on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the outrageous meter there? 10 is super outrageous. 1 is, what would you say?
That's like a 6, okay. 6.5, 7.
I'll take it. All right.
Yeah.
All right, bring yours.
Okay, you can tell me what this is on the scale of 1 to 10. My first one is that people are wondering about what's going to happen in the ACC, right? Weird league. Teams from all over the place. SMU is going to win that conference.
Oh, so do you have the odds on that?
I don't have the odd. I looked at DraftKings. I didn't write down what the odds were, but they are 7th behind Florida State, Clemson, Miami, NC State, Louisville, and Virginia Tech on DraftKings. Not like a super long shot. They're all kind of jumbled up a little bit. But I think a lot of people are expecting Florida State, Clemson, or maybe Miami is kind of getting a little traction as a trendy pick too to win that league. Clemson bounce back, Florida State like finding a way to sustain what it did last year. And then I think people are probably too high on Louisville. Virginia Tech, I don't think is quite ready to contend in that league. And NC State can be pretty solid. But SMU is a team that won 11 games last year, returns quite a bit. I think potentially has maybe the best quarterback situation in the league. I think that sort of depends on the growth of Cade Klubnik and which version of Cam Ward Miami might get most consistently. But I kind of like Preston Stone there too, as like maybe a more steady option of all those options available in the in the ACC. But the big thing was, so I listed all those favorites: Florida State, Clemson, Miami, NC State, Louisville, Virginia Tech. SMU only plays 2 of them. They play Florida State at home, and then they play Louisville, who I think is getting pumped up a little too much. So it's a pretty favorable schedule for SMU that I think is probably as ready as any team has ever been as it steps up a level from the group of 5 now to the power 4 in the ACC. Like, I don't think that'll be too daunting of a step up for that program.
So I'm going to give you a 4 out of 10.
Okay.
Only because I actually think this is more like a smart football guy thing to say than outrageous. Okay. So there's too much logic.
Okay.
Even though the odds would say like, okay, well, they're the 7th pick. I don't think you're the only person out there with SMU like this. I think the reasonable, if not doubt, at least questions and curiosity about Florida State, Clemson, and Miami as the 3 favorites in the ACC, I think that's prevalent. I don't know that there's anybody. We think we're going to do a show every Wednesday morning, like a recorded show that will drop every Wednesday morning called Plant Your Flag, where we're just going to be saying like this. We think this. Is there anybody out there who's like, oh yeah, Dabo's back? Boom.
No, I don't
for
think
real. So. Dabo's like, I got flags. You guys want a flag? I'll help you plant it. I dug a little hole. You don't even have to push that hard to get it in. And I'm good, Dabo. And then Miami and Florida State are in such an interesting position. The idea that Miami and Florida State have Oregon State and Washington State's quarterbacks from last year and it's like, what happened? Well, Oregon State and Washington State basically got kicked out of college football, but also they gave their quarterbacks to the most talent-laden areas in the country. It's like everybody in Florida is like, God, where can we get a quarterback? Do you know? And someone's like, the Pacific Northwest? And it just happened. How is that the world that we live in? What are Miami and Florida State and Florida, who has Wisconsin's quarterback? Wisconsin's quarterback, by the way, we will track that. Everything that the South steals from the North. Oh, yeah, guys, we need a quarterback and a coach. Do you guys have any of those? And the North is like, yes, we do. And the South is like, could we give them $3 million to come save our program? My God, the South wouldn't even exist in college football if it wasn't for the North. Wisconsin, Oregon State, Washington State, the 3 quarterbacks in the state of Florida. Just marinate in that for a moment. My God, what is happening?
I was going to do for this pick that all 4 power leagues were going to be won by a team that wasn't in that league last year, but like I couldn't do Ohio. I think Ohio State's going to win the Big Ten, so I couldn't do it. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good though, because that would be Texas or Oklahoma, Oregon, SMU, and then Utah.
Utah, right?
Wow. I will let you I mean, like, again, that's practically smart football guy talk. And all you really have to do to get yourself there is like, okay, Oregon beats Ohio State at home after Ohio State flies 2,500 miles across the country. right? I don't think that's even one of those things of like, it doesn't mean Oregon's better than Ohio State. It just means like a tough game for Ohio State, right? And doesn't mean, I mean, like Oregon also might be better than Ohio State. So that means it's possible from that. But also, Oregon might not be better than Ohio State, but beat Ohio State in that regular season game. But I guess your point is, and then they might have to play again in the Big Ten championship in Indy.
Yeah.
See, but sometimes, Bill, if you're being outrageous, you might have to say a thing that would be difficult to happen, even if you don't all the way think it. Okay, here's the thing. This is related to Oregon also. Tez Johnson is going to have 2,000 receiving yards.
Okay.
We've talked about this before. If they play 14 games, which is like a conference championship game and one playoff game, or not a conference championship game and two playoff games, right? I mean, like 14 is not even that many. Like, you might think, I think the over-under on like games Oregon plays this year is probably 14 and a half. Mm-hmm. So, but if they play 14, he would need to average, I think, 142 receiving yards a game to get to 2,000. In the last 15 years, the only power conference receivers who have averaged 142 receiving yards per game are Elijah Moore at Ole Miss in 2020 when they only played 8. He only played 8 games in the COVID year. He averaged 149. And Justin Blackman at Oklahoma State in 2010 when, like, I think that's Brandon Whedon, right? They're just chucking it around. That's like when nobody played defense in the Big 12. So this is a little bit of a lean toward, I know they have other guys there. I know people are excited about Evan Stewart. I know Gary Bryan is there. I know you really like Jordan James as a running back. We like Terrence Ferguson as a tight end. It's not like he's the only skill guy at Oregon. But I just think he might be the guy that they turn to. And I just think he might average 142 receiving yards a game. Like, it's a lot. But I think there are multiple things in place with how important he was last year. And then you lose Troy Franklin and you lose, Bucky Irving. And it's just like, okay, like here we are. It's wild, but I at least think it's possible. So I went there.
Yeah, like it's within the realm of possibility, I think, right? I just think maybe there's too many mouths to feed there for that to really come to fruition. But if we're talking a really long season, which I mean, we talk about some of these records in college football that have stood for a long time, or like we have to now factor in guys playing 16, 17 games potentially, right? So it's just like kind of different math. So it's pretty out there. Like I would say that is probably more outrageous than your first one.
Thank you.
You're welcome, but not impossible. I don't think impossible.
And it's one of those, like, what if Oregon, as good as Oregon is going to be, winds up playing maybe more competitive games than people think? What if Boise State is competitive? What if Oregon State's competitive for a little bit? What if Michigan State's competitive? Then the Ohio State game. What if the Michigan game's competitive? What if Wisconsin's competitive? What if Washington's competitive? I don't know that Tez Johnson's going to have 6 catches for 90 yards in the first half and then be sitting on the bench of every second half. So
yeah, possible.
I think that's a little bit part of it too. So I know it's out there. So what's my grading scale on that one?
I'd say that's a solid 8.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
yeah,
good. All right,
yeah.
What's your next one?
I'm like changing my picks on the fly because if I got a 4 for my SMU pick, I'm going to get like a 1 and a 2 for the picks that I was actually going to go with. So I'm trying to think of some different ones on the fly. So I'll go with this one. I was inspired by your statistical pick there. I will say that Quinshon Judkins will be the 6th player to have 30 rushing touchdowns in a single season.
So I was looking up single season. I think the single season Big Ten record for rushing touchdowns, I think, is Monty Ball, 33.
33.
I was actually looking that up in reference to Donovan Edwards. If Michigan is just like, that's it, we're gonna do the Penn State second half for 12 weeks. And we're just going to hand it to Donovan Edwards. And that's what we're going to do. And we don't care what anybody thinks. And that's it. So I was looking at that. But the Quinshon Judkins idea of this, I think you set up the quorum model already. But I'll give you, you said how many guys have done it in the history of college football?
He would be the 6th. So
Okay.
Barry Sanders is the record with 37. Monty Ball had 33 in 2011. Devin Singletary had 32 in 2017. Capri Bibbs had 31 in 2013. And Keenan Reynolds, the old Navy quarterback, had 31 in 2013.
Okay. I'll give that a 7 because it's a big statistical number. But if you believe the Ohio State offense will be productive, I think this might be a way that they score.
Yeah,
so,
and it's a number we've not seen at the power conference level since Moneyball in 2011.
Yeah, and it's just one of those where then this is Travion Henderson and Will Howard not being very involved in the red zone run game, or at least like the goal line run game, right? Because it's not like Ohio State's going to run for 70 touchdowns.
Right. Well, Will Howard will be. That's the one thing that gives me pause. It's the same thing that would give me pause if you wanted to throw Donovan Edwards out in a similar conversation. I think Alex Orji, assuming he's Michigan's quarterback, might take away from Donovan Edwards' rushing production more than Will Howard does Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins also is a second running back to share with. But I'm not talking yards. I'm talking about who's the guy you put into the game to finish the drive. And I think that's Quinshon Judkins.
Okay. That's a good one. This is my last one. No undefeated power conference teams.
Oh, okay.
In the going into the playoff. Well, which is, but I'm not just saying like, because otherwise you can only have one undefeated team anymore, right? Because everybody else, like, you didn't even get in the playoff. So in the 10 years of the 4-team playoff, that only happened twice. It happened in 2021, but Cincinnati was undefeated, which is how Cincinnati made the playoff out of the American Athletic Conference that year, because there weren't any undefeated power conference teams. And it also happened in 2017. Last year, there were 3 undefeated teams, and Florida State was undefeated and didn't even get in. The year before that, there were 2, 0, 2, 3, 3, 0, 1, 1, 1. So as it turns out, which is good for the sport, a lot of the really good teams play each other. Texas plays Georgia. Georgia plays Texas and Alabama. Ohio State plays Oregon and Michigan. Oregon plays Michigan and Ohio State. Like, this is... It's a tough. Penn State plays Ohio State. Like, it's a tough road. I actually maybe think it might be a Big 12 team. Like, Utah doesn't play Kansas State in the regular season. I think maybe even Utah would have the best path. So I think it is going to be. I went through and made up my SEC predictions, like to figure out again the Heisman thing and who I think is going to be in the SEC title game. I'm not giving it all away, but I will say in the SEC, for instance, I wound up with 2 teams going 7-1 in the SEC, 4 teams going 6-2, and 3 teams going 5-3. And overall, I wound up with 2 11-1 teams, 2 10-2 teams, 4 9-3 teams, and an 8-4 team. I just think they're going to beat each other a little bit, which again is great. So I don't look, and if I say, well, I think maybe Texas is better than everybody, I don't think that means they're going to win every game, not when they're playing the teams they're playing. So I think this is good for the sport. It's the let them lose initiative. 1 loss shouldn't ruin your season. And then I think it will also prove again, I think we're going to get to a point with the playoff where it would be impossible to pick 4 teams out of the group we're going to wind up with. And it's going to be much easier to pick 11 power conference teams. So I think it will remind everybody of why we're doing what we're doing, because we should reward these good teams and not try to have a fight to the death over this 10-2 team versus this 10-2 team for the 4th playoff spot. What are we doing? So no undefeated power conference teams. And I don't know, maybe Boise. Well, Boise won't go undefeated either because they're going to lose to Oregon. So maybe no undefeated teams in the entire sport.
That does actually not feel all that outrageous to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the history says, okay, so it's happened twice in the last 10 years. Well, I don't know, a 20% chance of something happening. But also, I think this season in particular is set up for it. So, yeah, you could just give me that feels like a football take.
Yeah, I kind of, because I don't know, the times that it's happened previously, it makes me want to go back and look at some of the schedules. It just feels like everyone's got kind of a beefed up schedule this year.
Yeah.
Right? Like the teams that you would put into the pot or the pool of teams capable of running the table have really hard schedules.
Yes.
I think. I don't know that I see someone doing it either. I think maybe Ohio State can do it. If I had to pick a team that might have the best chance to do it, I might go Ohio State, or maybe even Oregon if Oregon can beat Ohio State in Eugene, right?
Right.
But I don't know that I see it in the SEC.
And it's one of the things where the best teams have really tough schedules. And then there's like that second cut of teams that have significantly easier schedules.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know if it's the TV partners. We'll see how it plays out. But it's like the big dogs are all playing each other. And I think in the SEC, Ole Miss and Missouri have a chance to sort of like fly under the radar and stack up some wins. Does that mean they are better than Texas and Georgia and Alabama? I don't know, but their schedule's easier. And I think in the Big Ten, Iowa and Rutgers have a chance to stack up wins. And does that mean, and I think Penn State to some degree, but does that mean they're better than Oregon and Ohio State? No, but they're not playing these other teams. So it really, I think, shakes itself out to the point where I think we just might have. Now I actually want to do this math. Could we have 20 teams between 9-3 and 11-1 at the end of the year, like in the power conferences, like that?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, but also someone's 9-3 might actually be better than someone's 11-1 because I think it's the way it shook out. So anyway, okay. So what's my number on that? You think that's not just football talk?
Yeah, that's like, I'll give you a 4 because you gave my football talk a 4. I think that's a 4.
Yeah. No more football talk on this show.
Okay.
Just outrageous, crazy, maniac talk. All right. What are you bringing with your last one?
Okay. I don't know. This is another pivot from what I had written down. What I had written down really stunk.
Just say the thing you had written down first so you can lower the bar of expectations.
My other two were like that Ohio State and Oregon were going to play 3 times and that Ohio State was going to have the best defense of the college football playoff era. But there's two Ohio State takes in there, so I probably want to spread it out a little more. And also that's just like, yeah, that might happen.
That's just ball. Yeah.
And this may not qualify as outrageous either. I don't think it qualifies as outrageous on this show. I think it qualifies as outrageous if you look literally anywhere else at people talking about college football
on a normal show.
And that is that the Big Ten will have more playoff teams than the SEC, and the SEC is only getting 3 teams in the playoff.
Okay, man, I can't wait for our playoff picks. Because there's a place that I want to be, which is in your outrageous world, and there's a place that I am, and I have to figure out now between now when we make our playoff picks, which I think will be on the Wednesday, so like August 28th, I think is the show when we will reveal our playoff picks. But I like where your head's at, brother. But it's a little bit like it's outrageous because that's not where anybody else is.
Find me a playoff projection that has more Big Ten teams than the SEC. You might find some that have 4-4. I was looking at one earlier that had 5-4, I think. Part of it is I think the SEC might cannibalize itself a little bit. And I think I want this to happen, so I'm predicting it to happen. The Big 12 getting 2 teams in.
Mm-hmm.
So like Kansas State and Utah are both 10-win teams that play an absolute banger of a Big 12 championship game. And I don't care who wins; they're both getting in. So sorry, Ole Miss and Missouri, you're out.
And you are at least considering the idea of Notre Dame as a playoff team, right?
Yeah, that's the other spot. Yeah, I think the SEC loses two potential spots to Notre Dame and a second Big 12 team.
So when you do 2 Big 12, the ACC champ, that's 3, the Group of 5, that's 4, and Notre Dame, that's 5. Mm-hmm. That's 7 spots left for the Big 10 and the SEC, and it's on.
Yeah.
And it's on in a big way. So this is outrageous. I'm not holding you to this. I'll give this an 8. I'll give this an 8 because we can't live in a bubble and think that what we do, we can think that what we do and say is better and smarter than everybody else, but we cannot believe that it is the consensus. So I think to your point, depending what day it is and what mood we're in, that could be a 1 on this show. It's like, yeah, of course, the Big Ten get more than the SEC. Of course, what are you talking about? Of course.
Yeah.
But in the world, if you go on Feinbaum, invite this man on. If you go on Feinbaum, he's going to scream at you.
And I have a playoff bracket that doesn't have Ole Miss or Missouri, but has Iowa in it.
Yeah.
He might lose his mind.
I'm sure Feinbaum's at 5 SEC and 2 Big Ten. So for you to be at more Big Ten, I mean, let's put you on a world tour with that prediction. But I also think, and I am excited. I'm glad we're holding off on our playoff predictions because there's still injuries happening. Offensive linemen in the North keep getting hurt in a way that makes our heart sink. I think there are quarterback decisions that haven't been announced yet. I think there are vibes to be vibed still. And we have a good full week of camp yet. So I know some people are out with playoff predictions already. The hay's not in the barn. So I want to get to game week and be okay, we're here. Everybody's preparing for this first game. Now we know what's up. I think that's the right time to make the most informed playoff picks, right?
Yeah, you want the maximum amount of runway for those vibes to keep percolating until the games actually start. I think so. I want to be where we are when we make our picks for sure. I don't want to do it now. Yeah.
So, but we did. So we have to. We couldn't wait forever, so we had to do some Heisman stuff. That I don't know that there's anything that, as long as nobody gets hurt, and we don't want anyone to get hurt. As long as nobody's abducted by aliens, I'm not sure that there's anything that would happen in camp that would make me think, I can't believe I picked Jackson Arnold. Or that would make you think, I can't believe I picked Abdul Carter. What am I doing? It's we know what's up. We know the parameters that exist that make that pick logical in our minds. And I'm not sure that there's anything that's going to change in the next 10 days. But for teams overall, we want to see if somebody feels really hot. We want to see if something's going a little goofy for somebody and make our final playoff picks then. So again, just we had a meeting the other day, and I think in some ways you would look and say, hey, 5 live shows a week. We're probably going to have maybe 3 morning hits, potentially 8 hits a week on Kings of the North. I'm worried that we're not doing 14 hits a week on Kings of the North, because I think potentially we should be doing perhaps 30 hours of college football programming during the season, but that would be too much. So I'm not worried about filling up these shows. I'm worried about running out of time for all the things we want to talk about.
28 hours for each team, 1 hour for picks and 1 hour for reaction on Saturday.
I love it. That's okay. We have to have another meeting. All right. That's it for this show. We have stuff planned coming up. We think we will do a draft of the best quarterback matchups, the individual games in college football that we're most excited about. And we might have a guest join us for that show. And then before the season starts, we are going to make playoff picks. We're going to make record predictions for every single one of our 28 Northern teams, right? We're going to do that, Bill. Mm-hmm. And we're going to make sure that you guys know where we stand and what we think. And then on August 26th, when we go live, we're going to explain once again what this is. Yeah. I've been making maps.
I saw one. I saw that. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, our I don't think I told you this, that our guest for the quarterback draft did say he would do it. So,
okay.
Yeah. So you feel free.
Can record it? Do you think he can record ahead on Monday? If we're going to record the Tuesday show on Monday next week, can he do it on Monday? You think?
I think so. I'll double check.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's Ari.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ari Wasserman, man about town, college football gadfly, will join us for, we should tell him it's a quarterback draft and then change it to an offensive lineman draft when he shows up and watch his head explode.
He did ask, I said, we're going to do a quarterback draft. And he said, is it only Northern quarterbacks? And I said, no, we're going to do the whole sport. And we were texting, but I could sense the sigh of relief.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to draft the Carson Beck Quinn Ewers matchup 13th.
Yeah.
But at least I'll draft it.
Right. Ari will draft it first. We'll give Ari the first pick. He'll take that first. And then we can start the draft.
And then we'll just be drafting Avery Johnson, Jalen Daniels games. It's okay, I'm going to draft my 7th Avery Johnson game, and you are drafting your 6th Jalen Daniels game. And I mean, how can anybody not pick Garrett Green versus Jalen Daniels in the top 5? What are we talking about? That's what this is all about.
That's right.
Rocco Beck versus Avery Johnson in Farmageddon? Are you kidding me? That's number 2. That's number 2.
I want to draft Rocco Beck versus Avery Johnson in Ireland in 2025.
That's
my first pick.
We're going to draft it while we're in Ireland. And by the way, we got Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is going to be a boatload of fun to watch this year.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means for Colorado, but that's not what that draft is. That's quarterback draft. You know what I'm talking about?
They got a pretty enticing one in their second game. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Dylan Raiola, Shedeur Sanders is like already going to be like, I'll take Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, and we're going to be screaming at him that he left Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Raiola on the board. Okay. Ari's good. Ari's of the North. Ari is half North, half sunny places.
Yeah.
So he's got Northern blood for sure. There's a lot that happens, like in maybe some shows that maybe you watch, but it's a lot about the blood, right? There's where you're from, and then there's like where your people are from. Ari's people are of the North, so he can come on and talk about Rocco Becht.
He can. Yeah.
Okay.
Son of the North.
Son of the North. All right. That's it. As always, thanks to our producer, Mike Yorostowski, for making us look good and sound good. I don't know if you can tell, I am on edge and super jacked up for what is ahead. And we're going to order some stuff to put on my wall. So as soon as the show is over, we have to map out the plan for the entire show, because we start in like 10 days and we probably should have done that before. Hey, what are we going to do every day? But then we have to order stuff for the wall. And I'm going to get better lights. It's a scooch dark right now, but we know that, right? We know that. We had a big light conversation yesterday.
We did. We're going to get some lights, some stuff to hang on the wall. It's going to look great.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. Thanks as always to you guys for being part of it. Tell a friend. Tell them that Doug is just out of his mind. And even if you don't like it, you maybe should try to go watch it for 5 minutes, because this guy is nuts, because like this is happening. And we're getting ready for a full season of Kings of the North, and the North is rising up to the challenge. And I think we are looking at the most exciting, most fun college football season we've ever had. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was Kings of the North.